Hey Math Kids, today we're going to talk about algebraic expansion and factorization. So we're just going to jump right into it. So we have x to the negative 1/2, and it's being multiplied by x to the 3/2 plus 2x to the 1/2 minus 3 times x to the negative 1/2. Okay, so this one says expand and simplify. So the first thing we're going to do is just distribute and make sure we use our exponent rules. So when we do x to the negative 1/2 times x to the 3/2, we're just going to add those exponents. So it's negative 1/2 plus 3/2, and so we get x to the 2/2. We will simplify that in a second, but right now I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, there's a ninja 1 out here, right? So we do 1 times 2, we get 2. And then we do negative 1/2 times, plus 1/2. And so that's just going to give us a 0, x to the 0. 1 times negative 3 gives us negative 3. And then negative 1/2, negative 1/2, if we add those together, we get negative 2/2. All right. So 2 over 2 is 1, so that's really just x. X to the 0, this entire thing is just 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. And then this one is going to be x to the negative 1. And we could take that one step further. So we get x plus 2 minus 3 over x. Because a negative exponent comes down to the bottom, and this would be a 1. But we don't need to write that because that's redundant. So this would be the simplest form of the original thing written in pink. All right, now we have 2 to the x plus 3 and 2 to the x plus 1. And same directions, expand and simplify. So that just means distribute like this. Okay, 2 to the x, 2 to the x, 2 to the 2x. And then 2 to the x times 1 is just 2 to the x. 3 times 2 to the x is 3 2 to the x. And then 3 times 1 is 3. Now, these two are common terms. So this is like a 1 2 to the x and a 3 to the 2 to the x. So we get 4 2 to the x when we combine those. And then we still have our 2 2 to the x and our plus 3. And that's about it on that one. Okay. Now we have another one. 7 to the x plus 7 to the negative x, quantity squared. Now it's pretty tempting to just distribute this squared to both of these. But we have to keep in mind that when we square things, we multiply things by themselves. Okay, so we do this and then we distribute. So if we do that, we get 7 to the 2x. If we do that, the x's will cancel, so it's actually 7 to the 0. If we do this, we also get 7 to the 0. And then if we do this one and this one, we get 7 to the negative 2x. Okay, 7 to the 0 is actually just 1. And so we get 1 plus 1, which is 2. Then we get just our 7 to the 2x and our 7 to the negative 2x. And we'll just leave it like that. Okay, and now we're going to factorize. So this is going to take a lot of backwards thinking, and it's not going to be super linear. And so this ends up being a little bit hard for some people. So just take this slow if you need to. But remember, if we have 2 to the n times 2 to the 3, we would add those exponents, and so it would be n plus 3. And so we're actually going to go backwards with that. So we're going to change it to 2 to the n, 2 to the 3, plus 2 to the n. Now if we look at this term and this term, they both have a 2 to the n. So we're going to write 2 to the n, and then write what's left. 2 to the 3 plus 1. There would be a 1 left over right here. Now 2 to the 3 is 8. So we have 8 plus 1. And then that's 9. And so we can just pop the 9 out in front. And that's what we'd end with. Now if we have 2 to the n plus 3 plus 8, we can use similar thinking on this. But since this has a base of 2, I want to write 8 as a base of 2. Okay, so 8 is the same as 2 to the 3. Then I'm going to use my same trick. I'm going to do this thing. And so 2 to the n, 2 to the 3, plus 2 to the 3. So they both have 2 to the 3 in common. That leaves 2 to the n plus 1. And then 2 to the 3 is really 8. And so we can end like that. And this would be the answer on that one. All right, need some more space. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, still factorizing. Okay, so theoretically, this could be written as 2 to the n, 2 to the n, 2 to the n, plus 2 to the n, 2 to the n. We're not going to necessarily write it like that every time, but I just want to make that clear. So we can take out 2 to the 2n from both of these. That'll leave a 2 to the n right here. And since we took everything out right here, it's just going to be a plus 1. Okay, and that's really all we can do on that one. All right, we have quite a few more. So we have 4 to the x minus 9, and they want us to factor that. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to use difference of squares, and this may not necessarily look like it's set up for difference of squares, but what we're going to do is show that they're squares. So 4 is 2 to the 2, and then 9 would be 3 squared. And when we're doing that, we can, these are interchangeable because they're just multiplied, right? The rule is to multiply, because we could write this as 2 to the 2x, but we could also write it as 2 to the x2, and so we could also write it as 2 to the x squared. Okay, because we can do that, now it's a little more obvious that it's difference of squares, because we have this thing, and they're both being squared. So all we have to do is 2 to the x minus 3 and 2 to the x plus 3. And that's our final factoring for that one. And then the next one is 9 to the x plus 4 times 3 to the x plus 4. Alright, this is definitely one of the harder things for kids to wrap their heads around. Now they give us a big hint right here with this 3 to the x. So we're going to write this. We want to get it in the same form as this. And so we're going to say 3 squared to the x. And we're going to use the same trick that we used right here, where we can just interchange these. And so it's 3 to the x squared plus 4, 3 to the x plus 4. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to set up a u. So we're going to say u is equal to 3x. Now, if we do that, this is u, so it's u squared plus 4u plus 4. And so what that does is now it just looks quadratic. And so we can do 1 and 4, 2 and 2, 2 and 2 add up to this 4. And so we can say u plus 2 and u plus 2, or we can just say u plus 2 squared. Now, the only thing we need to do is we just need to replace the u with its actual value. And so we say 3 to the x plus 2 quantity squared, and that is our final answer. So this one's tricky because you gotta use this trick that we learned, and then you gotta notice that it's following the same pattern as a quadratic. And so we can use our quadratic methods, which in this case was t factoring, to factor it. I know that one's tricky, so definitely come to Math Lab if you need more help with that. Okay, so 6 to the n over 3 to the n, and they want us to simplify. So what we could do, we could, I think the one that's most intuitive, the book actually offers 2 methods to do this, but I think the most intuitive is to view it like this, because we could distribute that n to the top and the bottom, and then if we just do simplification right here, we get 2 to the n. Yeah, so that's how I would do it. You can look in the book for the other method. I think it's just way less intuitive. Now, if we have 4 to the n over 6 to the n, same thing, kind of factor out that n. We get 4 over 6 to the n, and that's going to be 2/3 to the n. Alright, we just got a few more that say simplify. So we have 3 to the n plus 6 to the n over 3 to the n. Oh, they're going to force us to use that not very intuitive thing. Okay, so what we can do with this one, we can say 3 to the n plus 2 to the n, 3 to the n over 3 to the n. On top, they both have a 3 to the n, so we can factor that out. And so that leaves a 1 right there, and then a 2 to the n. This is still over 3 to the n. 3 to the n cancels 3 to the n, and so this piece is our final answer. Okay, 2 to the m plus 2 minus 2 to the m over 2 to the m. And when we're doing this, we have to go backwards through our multiplication rules. And so we have 2 to the m, 2 to the 2, minus 2 to the m over 2 to the m. And so we factor out 2 to the m on top. So that's 2 squared minus 1 all over 2 to the m. Those cancel out. And then we just need to continue to simplify this. So 2 squared is 4, and so we just have 4 minus 1. And so the final answer on that one is 3. All right, we're on the last one. Okay, once again, this one can be written as 2 to the m, 2 to the 3. plus 2 to the m. And then this is 9. Factor out 2 to the m. That leaves 2 to the 3 plus 1 all over 9. 2 to the 3 is really 8, and so 8 plus 1 is 9. So we get 2 to the m times 9 over 9. 9's cancel, and we're left with 2 to the m. If you need additional help, please come to Math Lab. Until then, calculator.